Let's see.
There we go.
All right. Can you all hear us okay? Oh, good. Excellent. Sorry, we were having a little trouble with our speakers this morning, or with our microphones, I should say. All right. Good morning. It is Monday morning on May 19th. The time is 9:02, and this is the Finance Committee of Silverton, Colorado. And let's see, we have all members present. I know Tyler was here for a second. And then myself and Melina staff are here as well. We do have online our financial advisors that is later on in the agenda. So just wanted to shout out to them, and we'll get to them in a minute here. So we'll start off this meeting with our sales tax report. Does anyone have any questions on the sales tax or comments?
I didn't.
Let's see, I think we're hearing you guys. Yep.
No, I didn't have any questions.
All right. Looking stable for this year so far. So that's good news. All right, we'll go down to our actuals, and guess I could run through it, share it on screen, but I think it might be easier for us to talk through it and let people know that it is in the packet if they want to review it. So Melina.
Yeah, everything is looking all right for April. The first thing that we had highlighted was our regular employees under town administrator. We need to get with Michelle, our accountant. She usually does our coding over from ADP. It looks like that number is a little bit higher than what is actually recorded in ADP, and so we need to ask her what is kind of what's going on in there between ADP and Cassell in our year-to-date actual. And then next, under town clerk treasurer, you might notice that our professional services under year-to-date is already pretty high, and that's because we've already done our audit this year earlier than we usually do. And so that is already used up 30.2%. What's next? Under our general government operations, we need to move over from operating supplies. There's a little over 1,000 that needs to be moved over to office supplies, because we actually didn't budget for any operating supplies this year. It just needs to be moved over. Under visitor center, there's a charge that's been put under cleaning services for about 142 that needs to be moved over to custodial.
Yeah, I had a question for that on a couple of different cost centers. Like, is custodial and cleaning the same thing? Like, I think I was thinking of it for maybe it was town hall, or yeah, what's under cleaning services versus custodial?
So really we have a custodial line item for all of the facilities, and really we should be putting everything under custodial. I'm not really sure why cleaning services was created in the past.
Gotcha.
Probably one that we could maybe retire. But really it should be under custodial. We usually code all of our facility cleaning services under custodial.
Okay, because yeah, I noticed on town hall operations, we have a line item for cleaning services and a line item for custodial. So maybe for future budgeting, we could just clean that up.
Yeah. Yeah, really everything should just be under custodial.
Thanks, Melina.
Senior center internet is getting a little bit high. We just kind of need to keep an eye on that going through the rest of the year. We do have, you might have seen that 15,000 under town hall operations other. That is actually a DOE award that needs to be moved over to grants. And then was there anything else, Gloria? Or was that our last? No, there was one more. And then under Columbine Park maintenance, there is almost 3,000 under year-to-date actuals. That needs to be moved around. There are quite a few things that have been coded under there that are just incorrect. There's some LP gas charges, and some miscellaneous things that have just been coded incorrectly that need to be broken down into different line items, mostly propane, but a few things that need to be moved around.
Great, thanks.
But otherwise, I think that was it
Yeah.
for actuals.
Any questions?
I had two questions. So it looks like just overall big picture for the general fund, our expenses are around 26,000 over revenue. That's what I noticed. How do we feel about that? Or do we feel like we're on track? This is just kind of 30% into the year. So just wanted to see if there's any thoughts on that, if it's just a timing thing.
Honestly, feeling like we're on track here. One thing that happened this year that we haven't done in the past is starting taking out those administration fees quarterly. And so you'll see that if you look at the year-to-date actuals for 2023 or 2024, it's not quite as high as far as revenue goes this time of year, just because we started taking that out.
Yeah, gotcha. Okay. And then I noticed the Molus fund was definitely higher. And do we for revenue? And do we attribute that to the increase in fees?
Yes, yes. And actually, the updated numbers there, they have hit their 200,000 this month. This is, of course, our April actuals, so that doesn't reflect that, but this
Yeah,
month they did hit.
I did notice that when I was looking at this last week, that Molus is actually looking really good.
Great. And question about that. I think I remember with the contractor for managing Molus, we have kind of an incentive structure. Is that what you're referring to, Gloria?
Yeah, so the incentive is
Yeah.
if we hit the 200,000 mark, and this year their contract does expire. So we'll be reevaluating that next year with the new prices.
Okay, yeah, gotcha. Because I sort of thought, well, we increased the prices, so it's less about the dollar number and maybe more about total bookings. But yeah, I think overall that's all great news.
Great. Anything else?
Did you have a question, Tyler? I heard comment.
No, I'm all set. Thank you.
Okay.
Everything else looks good.
All right, we'll keep going then. So we do have the next agenda item is a financial advisor for the wastewater treatment plant funding. We do have several of the McKinley family here to talk through their proposal. But basically, the USDA funding versus the state revolving fund, that's something I've been grappling with on which one would serve our community best. And both have different debt obligations, as well as potential for grants or loan forgiveness. So I reached out to our Colorado Municipal League managers listserv and asked, different communities which funding mechanism they preferred. And overwhelming response was to consult a municipal financial advisor, because they're really looking at that long-term implications of that debt, and which one might serve us better. So right now we have been pursuing both the USDA funding and the SRF funding, but we're reaching a spot where we'll need to pick one or the other. So David Harris, the town manager of Pagosa Springs, strongly recommended Joey McLiney. I'm hoping I'm saying that right. They're online here. And how I did for me for phone the bonding for that. And typically with these types of agreements, the financial advisor doesn't get paid until the loan is secured, and that comes out of that loan. So wanted to see if there's any questions, and then also recognizing that we do have them online if you wanted to speak directly to them.
Great. I think this makes a lot of sense because I think it's such a huge project. This is a multi-million-dollar project, probably one of the biggest projects the town's gonna endeavor. And it makes a lot of sense to me to kind of get some outside eyes and perspective and capacity on what makes the most sense for the town. And I appreciated the cover letter that, when we're working with banks or lenders, they have a certain interest in their recommendations. Where if we have someone that's kind of really representing the town's interest more directly, I think that could be helpful. So overall, I'm supportive of this idea, and I needed a little bit more clarification on how the fee schedule worked. And I don't know if Jim or Tyler, you guys had other thoughts or.
I agree with you most. I mean, this will be, I think, probably the biggest project the town has ever done, right? And so, like you said, having somebody else that, hopefully represents us more, it's just, yeah, and I think I understand the fee structure, but I guess is this, yeah, I guess I could use some have it explained a little bit better to me as well.
Great. So I'll call on, I guess, either Joey or Max. Those are the two I've talked to before. And we'll allow you guys to speak right now. Yeah, we'll just promote you to panelist real quick. And maybe you can walk through the fee structure a little bit more, since you all are here.
And Gloria, while we're doing that, does this have to fall under our purchasing policy where we would go out to bid, or we can solicit a proposal and that's what we have in front of us?
This one, we can solicit a proposal.
Great, thank you for clarifying.
Okay.
So, hi, I'm Joey McLeany, and that's Max. We also have Daniel McLeany on, and they would be the team that handles this. Our job is really to put your interest first on everything. I noticed that we're separated for just sewer, and I recognize this is the biggest project that you guys are facing. We don't want to just be included in a sewer project. We want to be included in everything you guys are doing because it is a holistic approach. There may be stuff that, there is going to be no debt, perk projects and stuff. I want to look at that, or we want to look at that. Glad to see Daniel on there. Daniel's our numbers cruncher. We just kind of keep him in a cave, and all he does is play with spreadsheets. But that we want to be a part of all questions. You guys have a housing authority. I'm doing a housing project right now in Pagosa Springs. They just went forth. We have a meeting Tuesday night, but they just literally dropped it in my lap and said, "Oh yeah, by the way, we have this project." I didn't like the projections that the developer brought in, and so I have all sorts of questions on why, in fact, we're doing it this way. Now, it's going to go forward if the town wants it. I can make it move forward, but I want them to go in with both eyes open. The developer has said, we want you to issue COPs. COPs are certificates of participation. It will be and they will be sold, if you will, that COPs are not legally binding to anyone. And I will tell you, don't kid yourself. It'll be a 30-year obligation, and it is absolutely an obligation of Pagosa Springs. And so if you are also asked to do a COP, certificate of participation, it's structured as a lease, because in Colorado, Tabor Fund, because of Colorado, you can, the town cannot issue long-term debt without a vote of the people. So Pagosa Springs is asked to issue long-term debt without a vote of the people. Well, how do they do it? They use this lease mechanism. And because the lease is subject to what's called an annual appropriation, which means they have the legal right not to pay for it the debt service every year, they truly can walk away from it. If they walk away from it, they'll get hammered. They'll never be able to borrow again affordably. And so while the developer will say, you know, this says right here throughout the offering document, you do not have to pay for this. The reality is you absolutely have to pay for it. So Tuesday, this will be where I have to explain to the town, we can say this is a moral obligation, and that's what they call it, moral obligation. I go, but you must pay for this regardless. This is and so this is part of my job, is to give them this bad news, if you will, because up until this point, that housing project was to be on its own. It was going to issue on its own. It was going to, well, if they do it on its own, if it's self-funding, which it's designed to be, but it was going to be on the credit of the housing unit, it's probably going to be unaffordable interest rate. So they're borrowing the town of Pagosa Springs. It's like a co-signing loan of your 15-year-old that fell into some money, wants to buy a Ferrari. You know, give them a Ferrari and a six-pack. What could go wrong? That's what I do. That's what we do. You guys have a sewer plant or sewer project. I don't have our agreement in front of me, but what's the size of the project?
17 million.
Okay. Are we expecting grants?
Well, and that's what we're engaging with you for, is either the USDA or the SRF grant.
So USDA is easier. They're still funding. SRF around the country is not, is slower. They're both terribly slow. So let's assume we get a 40% grant on a $17 million project. The fee is going to be roughly, it's going to be under 1%. It'll probably be 3/4 of 1%. And I don't have it in front of me. If it was a housing project, it would be 2% regardless of the size. It is what it is. Housing takes a lot more time. That's pretty much standard in Colorado. But our fee schedule, if it is based only on the debt issued. So if you get grants for everything, there's no fee. We will hope that you guys keep us on board. The last line of the agreement pretty much makes it easy to bring us on board, because you can fire us anytime you want. And so if you think, hey, we've got this handled, fine. We don't want to be here unless you guys want us here. And we like being boots on the ground in town. In Pagosa Springs, we're going to be running an election in November, I believe, for a sales tax. Gloria and I've already talked a little bit about this. I don't think you have room for additional sales tax in your town. So I'm going to take a step back. I've been rambling on. Are there any questions?
Yeah, I have a question.
Sure.
Again, sort of on the fees. So if you only get paid on the debt issued, but you mentioned earlier that you want to work with this sort of holistically, I guess, how does that change our bill if you want to work with us not just on the sewer project, but I mean, I guess I'm just trying to figure out, I guess, how the town would get billed if you're working on more than just. Is that what you meant? You'd be working on more than just the sewer project? Is that what you meant by a holistic approach?
Yeah, I want to be. I want to be where you guys want us to be.
Okay.
So there's going to be projects where we don't get paid on, just flat out. My family's been doing the exact same thing. We're part of a bigger group. There's roughly 75 of us. Samco Capital is out of Austin, Texas. And they like to joke that they've got enough McClineys that they can field a soccer team. But my family has been doing exactly the same thing since 1928. And so you may not pay me, but likely you're going to end up paying one of my sons or my nephews in the future. So absolutely, it sounds like I'm giving away something. I'm not. We will work for you guys. There are projects that we will work on that we're not going to bill on.
Okay, thank you very much.
So it sounds like what you're saying is, we have the $17 million sewer treatment plant project. We also have a Silverton Housing Authority, Municipal Housing Authority. So what I hear you saying is that to consider the whole financial picture of the town, you would be wanting to look at the variety of projects we're working on, both grant funded and that need debt issued. And then you would be making your recommendations, for example, like for our sewer project, based on that whole picture of those variety of projects. But you're not necessarily, the most immediate project is the sewer treatment plant. And so your fee would be built into whatever the debt issue service is for that.
Correct.
Yeah, okay, that's
You
helpful.
got it.
And so, yeah, go ahead.
No, so it's, for example, let's say you were doing a housing project right now, and that housing project was going to bring on 200 new homes or 200 new equivalent units. We would then, that would be an important part to know because we're doing sewers. To add 200 sewers to your sewer treatment facility, I mean, obviously that's going to reduce the amount of fees that we need to generate. I like to break things down, or we like to break things down to what does it cost the user, the end user?
Mm-hmm.
And from that point of view, you tell me, is this affordable? Right now, the reason we have an election in Pagosa Springs, or it looks like we're going to have a November election, is because the cost per connection right now is $72, and maybe it's $71.25 per month per connection or equivalent unit. And I keep using Pagosa because they're similar to you guys in that they bring in a lot of tourists. That equivalent unit will go up by, if they do not vote a sales tax, will go up by $150 a month to per month per connection. Completely unaffordable. And I've said this is completely unaffordable. Nobody's going to pay this. The people that can least afford to pay it are going to get hammered on this. The way to do it, the proper approach, is a sales tax approach. Increase the sales tax by 1%, and we can actually lower the sewer by $13, which, and I didn't come about that arbitrarily. I looked at the cost of a family of 4 in Colorado, their food costs. And so a 1% increase would cost them approximately $13 per month per connection equivalent. And so I'm offsetting one with the other with the hope that we can vote. That will be an attractive vote, an attractive message. And so we're helping with the election as well. We don't get paid for help with the election. The sales tax approach is specifically so that we can do this as a pay-as-you-go for the sewer projects. I don't want to do that if I can avoid it, which means I am not going to get paid, or Daniel or Max isn't going to get paid if we don't issue debt. Well, that's fine. A better approach, if we can do it, is pay cash for it.
So with the fee schedule, walk me through a hypothetical. Like if we have we estimate the project's going to be $17 million. We think, maybe half of it is going to be in grants, 60%. So let's say like it's an $8 million project. And so how does the fee schedule work with that type of a project?
Max, do you have that schedule in front of you?
No, I do not have the schedule in front of me. I've actually been looking for it.
Let me pull it up so I can look at it. I'll give you what exactly an $8 million project would cost. I'm sure it's in my email since we sent it over. Bear with me, I'm sorry.
And I have it
no,
up on the
that's fine.
screen.
Oh. Let's see.
Page 48 of our packet.
I don't have the packet, but I'll get it. Hang on, let's see. I sent it on this date.
And I do have it pulled up on the screen, Joey, if that helps.
Let's just, there we go. Oh, there it is. Okay, so let's make it easier on me. If it's a revenue bond, which this will be, and let's just say it's $10 million, it would be 61,000 times 1.25, 61 times 1.25 equals. So it would be 0.7%, 7.6%, or $76,250 if it's a $10 million project. Revenue bonds take a little bit more, big deal. So that's the second paragraph, or the paragraph underneath the table. Those are for general obligation bonds. General obligation bonds in Colorado require a vote, and they're secured by property taxes, and nobody likes property taxes.
Yep. Okay. And that would be wrapped into the debt
The
service.
financing.
And yeah,
Correct.
go ahead.
Yes,
Yep.
correct. That would be there. You're not going to reach into your pocket. Now, USDA typically requires interim financing.
Yeah.
And so if we do the interim financing, we won't get paid when the USDA actually takes out the interim financing, which is fine. I don't need to be paid twice unless you want to pay me twice. I will accept it. I'm really getting I'm throwing out some of my best jokes and I'm getting
Funny.
no reaction. It's really,
Funny.
and if you think I'm not being serious, you're probably right most of the time. This is I really like. I don't play golf, so I really like numbers, and so I hang out with numbers all the time. So it's really fallen flat. Maybe it's just the Zoom call. They do get better.
We're still drinking our coffee.
Me too. I'm only an hour ahead of you.
It is worth mentioning, let's say this $17 million sewer project, we take you guys from all the way point A to point Z at the finish line, and at point X or point Y, the government comes down and says, you know what, actually, we think this is too high of a rate to increase. We're going to give you 100% grant, and we have done all of this work for you. We get paid nothing on that grant, and you guys just get $17 million free dollars for your sewer. And that's just kind of the way we have operated. We don't get paid on any of your grants that you get, and we will work for you until we get you to the finish line. That's just how we do it.
And what about loan forgiveness? Because that sometimes can happen as well, different than a grant. I mean, sometimes in rural disadvantaged areas, the loans can be forgiven after a certain amount of time. How does that work?
The beauty is that you will have issued your debt and then we will have been paid. And then if it's a year or two later and you get loan forgiveness, we're not giving back the fee. However, with the SRF, it's likely they'll tell you ahead of time what the loan forgiveness is before closing. If you got forgiven all of it, okay, same thing. Before we have to issue debt.
Yeah, okay. And, if there's potential for additional grants to help support any of this, that would not be a component that you would be helping with as far as looking for those and writing those, because obviously that doesn't relate to your fee. The main portion would be your advice and analysis on the right financing mechanism if we are issuing debt.
Correct. And right now, in Colorado, the SRF is the cheapest way to go in terms of interest rate. However, USDA will let you go, I think, 40 years in Colorado. So in terms of payment, their interest rate's higher, but in terms of payment, it's the better route. They also typically come up with 30, 40, 50% grants. And so, and they are slightly easier to do business with. They're both they both take a terribly long time. It is, I'm sure it's been a year and a half just to get to this process.
Oh, Joey, I think we lost your audio. Can you all still hear his audio?
Yeah, we could.
Oh, we lost
We
everyone's
lost
audio.
everyone.
Never mind.
We lost
Here.
everyone's audio.
It was one of those really good jokes you missed. Tara.
That's
So
it.
Can you hear
Yeah.
us, Gloria? No. Can you hear us now? All right, we'll give him just a minute.
Must have been all that fee talk.
That's
System
it.
went down.
Okay, I think we have you
Scares me.
back.
Yeah.
Back on the hour.
Okay, we're back.
We can hear you
Great.
again.
You heard all that because we didn't, but we just lost you for a minute.
Yeah. Jim, did you have a question? No.
Just taking extensive notes and taking it all in.
So walk us through this a little bit. Let's say we're going to say, okay, yep, we're going to sign this contract. We're going to bring you on board as a financial advisor for the sewer treatment project. What does that look like in terms of the capacity that you add to town hall staff? Because again, we're a small town, right? We're 800 ratepayers, maybe on a good day. But we also need a system that supports our numerous visitors and summer residents and et cetera. And we have a town administrator who also serves as our financial director and HR manager and IT director. And let's see, what else do you do, Gloria? All the things. And so talk to us a little bit about how the process works in terms of moving this project forward and the capacity that you add to Gloria and staff.
Well, hopefully I take off of Gloria's desk. My job is to get out of her hair and to take off anything to do with the debt. So the first thing we do is examine all of your debt right now. We look at your rate structure. And then we know we have a $17 million project. We look at both SRF. We'll look at SRF and then we'll look at USDA. One of the bonuses of USDA is that your debt with the USDA. Gloria, have you guys received a letter of conditions yet from USDA?
Not for this project.
Okay, so an LOC, a letter of condition, allows you to, for the short-term borrowing, to go to Moody's Investor Service, pay a fee, and that fee will turn your bonds from non-rated or triple B to MIG 1 or triple A. Actually, it's not triple A anymore since Moody's just lowered it, but it will be the highest. It'll be the highest investment grade because it'll be based not on Silverton, but it'll be based on the United States federal government's. And so we will be able to borrow at the least expensive cost possible in this market because of that rating. And so we'll use that number and we'll calculate where we think rates will have to go to afford this project. And then it comes back to you. Nobody does sewer projects because they want to. Typically, it's because DNR has come in and said, you must fix your system. And so if I come back and go, it's going to cost everybody $100 per month per unit, equivalent unit, you're going to say, we can't afford that. I'll say, you're right, we can't afford that. The project can either die, we can go back to DNR, we can go to USDA and say, hey, nobody can afford this. We need some money. At that point, they either say, move it forward and we'll provide the grants or not. Do you guys have a grant writer on board yet?
That's
That's
me.
also Gloria.
I'm sorry, Gloria.
She's very successful.
I will help with those numbers. I'm not going to tell her what grant writers get paid, just in case you're saving them a lot of money.
I know.
But that's my job is really to help Gloria when she has questions. Look at your current debt. I don't know what any debt. I haven't looked at any of the numbers, but to look at all of your debt. There may be a way to dovetail this into existing debt that's more affordable. USDA does not allow you to do that ever. They want you to pay the same amount today as you will in year 30. Sometimes DNR allows us to do it a little bit. They also are the same way. The reason USDA doesn't want to do it is because they're still using Excel spreadsheet and they don't know how to do it. And it drives me crazy. But that's just the way they are.
And so with those negotiations with USDA, if it comes back and it's like, look, these rate increases are just completely untenable for our community, would you support that negotiation back with USDA?
Oh, sure. I want to be a part of any call you guys have,
Yeah.
especially USDA. USDA, first of all, will they typically will say this is too low a sewer rate, and they want, I think right now they want to see most sewer rates at about $65 per month per connection. If you're over that, that helps with your grant. But that's part of the conversation. And they're pretty much anywhere I work with USDA, and I've worked with them across multiple states. In fact, I'm licensed in, I think at last count, 21 states. They're very easy to do business with if you can get them on the phone or if they haven't quit. In some states, they've absolutely, because of our fearless leader in DC, have started quitting. Missouri lost the head of their department. In Kansas, they've got most of their field office workers have quit or moved on to other projects. It makes it very difficult. DNR and the state revolving loan funds, they're shrugging their shoulders saying, we don't know if we're going to have more funding. So we're moving forward as if it's all going to work out, and hopefully it will.
And then let's see, I had another question. Let me think from something you said. Oh, Gloria, I know that we've been working with engineers on kind of scope and scale, and we have had a rate study done. And so what would be kind of your team's role in looking at those components of, the type of product or project that we're looking to invest in and the scope of it for future growth of the town, the amount of tourists we host, make sure we're kind of right sizing what we're thinking about so that when we go out to pursue funding for a project, we know that it's the right size of funding.
Max, do you want to talk rate studies or?
Well, when it comes to rate studies, this is all with you hiring us. You should come to us because we offer rate studies for free for our customers. That is something that engineers will tend to charge you a little arm and a leg for. When it comes to doing rate studies, we will go back and forth with USDA or the SRF or DNR and say, this is not feasible when it comes to, you guys need this rate increase by this date. We'll go back and we'll say, how about we look at this as a stepped approach? How about maybe we extend the debt so we can lower this burden, this rate increase that's going to be coming on to your guys as citizens, and say, let's do a rate increase of a smaller amount of dollars by this time, and then move it all the way up until we can get to that spot and whatever year they decided that it needed to be. I might have not answered the question.
No, that's what I wanted to talk about. The engineers charge a ton for rate studies. They're $4,000 or $5,000. Sometimes they're less than that, but normally there's a comma involved, and drives me crazy because it'll be very pretty. You'll get a lot of pictures and everything. I can do a rate study in an afternoon, and I can do it on a single page, and we'll be within pennies of each other. I am not going to tell you what needs to be your base rate. I will tell you this is what it should cost per month per connection. You can divide this up. You can have a base rate plus every 1,000 gallons, or you can just have a single flat rate. That's your call. DNR absolutely wants to see a cost per 1,000 gallons. They want that as it flows. Sometimes that works out nicely. It's 100 times easier to do flat rates for USDA and for community members. It's awfully easy to say, and to have a higher flat rate, especially when you've got hotel rooms that are paying equivalent units. You don't want to have a flow out of that one because, they may be empty 30% of the time.
Yeah, we have quite a bit of seasonal businesses and residences, and we have to pay for the system year round. So
that's right.
Base rates are very effective for us.
How do you guys do your billing?
Bi-monthly.
Bi-monthly.
And
we're all laughing because we just implemented, we increased base rates slightly, and we implemented some EQRs that we've gotten a lot of earful about. So
yeah, it's a mix.
Our metering system is failing. And so we've switched to an EQR system. And so we do six billing cycles a year. And so we have a base rate for residents and then a EQR system in place for commercial businesses based on that base rate after residential rate.
With the goal of fixing the metering system and then having a base EQR and then any extra metered on top charged.
Yes.
So build 6 times a year, that, I know it's going to be the exact same as if you build 12 times a year. People tend to like the smaller bills more often than the big bill every other month. But again, none of my business. This is you are the boots on the ground.
Yeah, it's more cost effective for us to bill bi-monthly at this point, but thank you. Trustees, do you all have any more questions?
I do have another thing to add. When it comes to another service we provide, when it comes to getting, these bond questions passed on behalf of the city, you guys will probably have, well, similar to this, a city hall meeting where your citizens will come and voice their opinions, and, well, people tend to like to bark. And we will be there to explain, this is why we're asking you guys to vote on this. This is what it's going to cost. This is what it'll cost if we do not go through this route. And we'll be there to answer any questions when it comes to numbers. When it comes to actually what the project is, say it's a fire truck, we would move it over to Silverton EMS because they know fire trucks, we know numbers. But at the end of the day, we would like your guys' citizens to have the target on us and hate the guys in the suits, because at the end of the day, we go home and you guys have to live with them. We would rather have them dislike us than dislike you.
Oh, we'll still get the earful. We'll still get an earful. Yeah.
We will give out our phone number. So if a citizen wants to discuss numbers or want to yell at somebody, we get calls from citizens somewhat frequently. And the long and the short of it is after they've barked, and I know you know this because you are the elected officials, but after they bark, if you start talking numbers, they pretty much want to get off the phone as soon as they can. Because nobody wants to follow the numbers. But we really do want to be there and be a target, as Max said, and let them say, why the hell are my rates going up this much? And here are the facts. And people, once they, get hot, they tend to cool off really quick if you give them a very solid, fact-filled answer.
Hopefully.
There is a few that will never be satisfied with anything.
Outliers.
And you guys know who those are.
I think we have a big community of outliers, Tyler. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
It's a joke. All right. Well, I think we have a lot to think about. Jim, I want to make sure if you had any questions, we don't miss anything you wanted to ask while we have these guys on the phone.
I'm good. Thank you so much. I'm good. Overall. I like the letter engagement. I like the fact that you do have references and recommendations from our neighbors down the hill. Moreover, what I do believe the conversations will have to really take into consideration is how we fund this long term, and that doesn't impact our local community more than we've already impacted ourselves. And other than that, I like it.
Well, thank you guys. I appreciate being asked and invited. We'll get out of your hair and let you finish your meeting. Any questions, just pick up the phone, give us a call. I'm in Pagosa Springs a lot, so I'd love to drop by. See you later.
Thank you.
That's great. Thanks for joining.
Thank you.
Thank you all
Appreciate
for
it.
having us.
Thank you.
Thanks, Gloria, for that. I think again, it just kind of stands out in my mind that it's a lot to expect our local staff to know and be apprised of all the nitty gritty for signing on to a project this big and, you know, a debt structure this big, et cetera. And there are a variety of tools and mechanisms that we can tap into to finance this, pay for this, et cetera. And I am very supportive of kind of getting professional support to figure out what that looks like the best. You know, when you go to buy a house, you look into getting experts. When you're looking at insurance, you get people that are familiar with insurance. And so I think it's perfectly reasonable to pursue some expert support here. Did you have any further questions or thoughts, Gloria, in thinking about this?
I wanted to see what you all thought of this group. We do have our other financial advisor that helped us through the Columbine Park project. What appealed to me with these guys is doing another rate study and comparing it to our current rate study just to get those. And they do more of a long-term forecasting on recommendations, which I don't feel like we got in our last rate. I don't think we got the nuanced, like, yearly breakdown that I was really looking for in our last rate study. And that's something I've already talked to these guys on how they would structure that rate study. And that appealed to me of kind of getting that more free advice and evaluating our rates once again.
Yeah, it feels like with our previous rate study, we got a ton of analysis on our current approach, basically saying, well, if you don't do anything, you're going to have to double rates on everybody with a few recommendations, but not a lot of analysis on, well, if you take this scenario, it'll look like this. If you take this scenario, it'll look like this. If you take this scenario, it'll look like this. It basically worked just within the constraints of our current rates anyways, and that felt like a little bit of a missed opportunity. Maybe
Yeah.
I'm misremembering, but that's what it seemed like.
Yeah, without taking in any other variables either in forecasting. Size of community, number of houses, like there's just, yeah, this is what you have, this is what you need to do immediately. So
To be honest, I was disappointed in our last rate study, so I would like to see if this version might, and maybe I'm just searching for the right answer. You know, when you get a diagnosis and you go to different doctors and you're like, well, maybe no, I don't want to hear that. I'm going to try this next one. That's kind of what I'm doing here, is trying to figure out, you know, if there's a better diagnosis.
Well, and we have new information. I think we have new information on potentially the scope and the scale, right? The fact that you're able to say, well, I think it's probably going to be close to a $17 million project. I mean, I feel like when we were doing our rate study before, we were saying, well, 12 to 20, I don't know, 12 to 20 million. And so I feel like we have new information, which is recently implemented rate changes and potential scope and scale of the project. So that feels like we have an opportunity to more fine tune the recommendations. I think what I would ultimately be looking for is I want a picture that says, okay, this is how much the total project is likely to cost. And this is how much we think we'll get in grants. So this is the remaining balance. And, you know, let's say it's $8 million or something. And if you just want to do pay it by rates, it's going to cost this much. If you wanted to do rates plus a tiny sales tax increase, it would be this much. Or, you know, I think, or else saying, hey, this is the rate we think people can potentially afford. What are the mechanisms to bridge the gap? And so that's what I would be looking for from these guys.
Any information to alleviate the fears. Because we're gonna walk into it once again.
Yeah. Well, and I pulled out my water bill. That's what I see right here. You know, and he mentioned something like USDA is going to be looking for around a rate around $65 a month per tap. That's what I heard. And I'm assuming he meant for sewer.
Said
Is
sewer.
it sewer? And so right now ours is at $95 bi-monthly. And so that means that even with our increased rates,
It's not enough.
we're
have
not
to come up
really
with-
within that framework, right? And again, I think the thing that we have to keep reminding the public is like, look, even while these rate increases are painful, by each of us as ratepayers shouldering a bit more, that means we have the potential to qualify for loan forgiveness or grants, right? Like, again, it allows us to leverage a little bit more from every ratepayer to then get millions of dollars either in grants or forgiven loans. And I think that's an important thing to keep in mind. But it's, yeah. This
And
conversation is not over.
I think, sorry.
Go ahead, Jim. Yep.
No, I agree with your statement 100%. And I was gonna add at how do we convey the message, show to everyone that if you break it down, we're right around 35 to 40 bucks a month. We need to be at 65, just according to the comments that were made. Just to qualify for certain programs. If we get forgiveness, if we get great rates, how does that positively impact each and every one of our ratepayers? And if potentially your rate might go down.
Yeah, and
This is going to be a tough sell.
yeah,
I think we're back in this place again where we're having to be salesmen, and we all are. It's not just one or two of us; it's all of us, and it's going to be a big tough pill for all of us to collectively swallow.
I would be really, really hesitant to say that, unless, I mean, what are the chances of somebody's rates going down? I mean, yeah, I don't know. It's gonna be a tough sell, but I also don't want to, I don't want to give people hope if it's just the slimmest chance that, so I think it's just, I understand that we qualify for more programs if we get that price up, but that's hard to explain to somebody when they can't pay an extra $25. Like, it doesn't matter. $25 a month.
Yeah.
It's too much. Like, do I give a shit if we're going to get $10 million in grants if I have to pay,
An unaffordable rate.
$10 more a year? Like, and that
Yeah.
really, really affects me and my bottom line every month. And I don't really care about the $10 million that the town is getting. And
Right.
it's going to be the response from a lot of people. So yeah.
But if you didn't get that $10 million, your monthly rate would be even more.
I mean,
Your share of the cost would be even more. That's the
exactly.
selling point.
Yeah.
I mean, I hear what you're saying, Tyler, and again, it's just hard.
Yeah. And I guess, following up with that is going to be really important, but, and then explaining that, I think maybe it might also be important to explain then that it's not going to matter. It's not political, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's not going to matter who your town board consists of, but if you don't get these programs, your rates will go up. Because I do get the feeling, there's certainly some folks that think that this town board is out to get them. And like, I think maybe and I need to do a better job explaining to people, like, this is just, these are the facts that we're dealing with right now. And it has nothing to do with us or whoever the next town board is. But yeah, it's going to be a hard sell.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, we're not talking about raising rates right now. We are talking about, what's that?
Yeah, we should wait and see what.
Yeah, we'll wait and see what his analysis comes to. But wanted to, that's one reason why I like them, is that they would do this like additional rate study. And I think it would be beneficial to have two to compare for you all to look at. And then hopefully get more nuanced into how it compares to our debt, what we can afford in our budget moving forward, and then really have those conversations on, okay, what are our priorities and how do we want to move forward with this? So it sounds like general consensus to engage with them, and this would come before the entire board, but wanted to get your all's feel first.
Yep. The only other question I had was, and I sort of asked him that, they want to take a holistic approach and look at all of the projects we're doing. Does that mean that they're also going to, bill us for any other debt that we take on? And are they going to help us with that other debt, obviously, but then are they also going to bill for it? Again, we just need to think about that.
They'll get a piece of it. That's what
Yes.
it is.
Yeah.
Gets a piece of everything you get.
As far as our current 9-unit housing project, that's pretty much figured out right now. Like there's nothing
Yeah.
really to bring them on. They definitely seemed a little ambitious to chomp at that. And I'm really trying to keep them focused on, well, that's great, but we've already kind of got that figured out. Where I need their help is the wastewater treatment plant.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
And just, I guess, making sure that then they don't get to sort of inject themselves into a process that we may have already finished or is not finished, but like we've done a lot of the work on, and they're not just collecting a fee for it.
Right. No, we're pretty much over the goal line there. So I don't think they can jump on for that.
Okay.
They won't jump on for that is my 2 cents. Jim, you had something?
Yeah, I had a quick question during the conversation. Mr. Joey had mentioned that the discussions that he had were pertaining to the fact that we don't want to raise any taxes or raise any funds through taxes. Did I hear that correctly? Because I wrote it down. I just wanted to make sure I heard that correctly. And I didn't want to ask the question while he was talking, because I think that's kind of an art discussion rather than talking with the consultant.
Yeah, no. So when I told him our current sales tax, he went, oh, well, then I don't think you have any room to raise taxes.
Sales taxes.
He kind of felt like we were capped out on the current sales tax that we charge.
Well, I just,
The table. I mean, if that's something we wanted to discuss.
well,
We
the comment that I had and what I had written down was years ago, working municipalities in South Florida and also Durango, was a penny to half penny sales tax that went directly and was earmarked directly for a certain project, but that had minimal to low impact on the residents of that community. Knowing that the majority percentage is tourism money coming in and folks from out of town, this would less likely impact locals and more likely impact visitors to the community. And if it's a penny to half penny, it's a steady stream of income and revenue that we can earmark directly for this project that can offset some of the costs that our folks will incur just naturally through this process.
I mean, and I have some experience with this because when I
yes, exactly.
on getting the EMS sales tax, when that was the exact pitch we used was to town. We got a lot of pushback, and I'm not saying I don't support it. I do, but I just think we need to recognize we got a lot of pushback from the business community saying that it was going to scare away tourism. They were worried about, fewer people visiting the town. There was definitely some pretty staunch opposition. We dropped it down to, I think Kimmett was initially asking for like 2.5, and that was just never going to happen. So, but there's definitely, I think that's a good idea. But I think also looking at our total sales tax, a lot of people right now think that, we have one of the highest sales tax rates in the state, and people are pretty worried about it getting any higher. So I'm not sure that I agree with the argument, because I don't think when I'm going to visit a place, I don't check just the local sales tax to see if I want to go there or not. But yeah, it is something that you have to think about then too. But
Yeah, I think it's going to have to be a community conversation. I mean, really, the best we can do and the obligation we have to the community is to be really honest and transparent about what kind of investment level we're going to have to face and what a whole variety of scenarios means. And I trust our community to have that conversation. There's going to be differences of opinion for sure. I mean, you get 5 people in the room and there's going to be 7 opinions, but I also trust our community to understand these issues. We know we're all in this together. There's broad consensus and knowledge that our current sewer plant has to be replaced. And at some level, there's going to be critiques about the price tag. There's going to be critiques about the rate structure. There's going to be critiques about the financing. But the best we can do is to be transparent, to bring people along in the conversation. At the end of the day, this board and future boards are just going to have to make those tough decisions because this is not discretionary spending. This is not stuff that we kind of get to pick and choose what we want to do. This is brass tacks what we as a municipal government have to fund and figure out a way to finance and to reduce the burden as much as possible while still funding the infrastructure that is essential for the community. And we're just that's the path we're going to have to take, and that's the path this board's going to have to walk and future boards, because this is going to be a long-standing project. So buckle up, everybody.
Well,
We're going to figure it out.
unfortunately, we're just going to get the brunt of it.
Yeah.
But you're absolutely right. This is going to be a long-standing project. It's not going to be easy, and it's certainly not going to go fast.
No.
And maybe, not maybe, whatever work session, whatever communications we decide, whatever path we decide to go down, we'll end up facing the same thing that we've been facing with these EQRs.
Yep.
It just is what it is. And I know that statement doesn't solve it, but it really does sum it up pretty quick.
Yep. I think a win for us, and we're the finance committee, so this is a great place to talk about it, is I think an area of demonstrating kind of goodwill and compromise is to do a more thorough look at our admin fees this budget cycle, and just kind of think about that structure, because I think making some of those changes potentially, it's not, again, there's always going to be challenges and critiques, but I think that's a common area where I hear the most frustration kind of around how we fund these different funds. And we have to be realistic about what it costs to fund these funds, right? It costs staff time, it costs equipment, it costs, plants and machines and things that have to run year round and that have to be financed in a certain way. But I think that is one area where we can at least have a conversation as the finance committee and then into our next budget cycle. But I think everybody has to recognize that there's all these trade-offs, because when we adjust our admin fees, it inherently means that there's less money in the general fund to spend on all the variety of things that people ask us to do. We've seen that. Yeah, Tyler, you're nodding or shaking your head. It's tricky.
I'm shaking my head. Look, I have a lot of friends that, they disagree with the amount of money that's spent on admin fees. And, quite frankly, a lot of these people, they're not worried about the trade-off that you're talking about, Dana. Their concern is they want to spend less on water and sewer. They want less money to go to admin fees. And if that means cutting salaries, then so be it. And that is the bottom line. And I don't agree with that. And I can't get behind that. But that's where a lot of that comes from. They're like that, well, we're just spending too much on salaries. And if we just cut everybody's salaries, we won't have to pay as much. And that's where the admin fees are going. So I think that, obviously it is a trade-off, but I don't agree with it, but it's also, And I think that's sort of maybe reductionist, but that's certainly the view. I think friends have that view. And so
Yeah.
it's not
Well,
exactly trade-off. It's like and I don't think that we're in a position to do that because I think we need to keep our good people. And in order to keep them, we have to pay them appropriately.
yeah. Yeah, I feel like this board and the previous board have been very bought into the level of investment we've made in staff recruitment and retention, and that we have recognized that we've had to do that. And what have we seen at town hall? We have seen a decrease in turnover. We have seen higher performance expectations, and when we've needed to recruit externally, it's hard for us to compete because we are not competing within just our 800 people that live here. We're competing with outside communities as well. And so when I talk about decreasing the admin fees, I'm wanting to help people remember that means we can't spend $60,000 a year on our nonprofit partners. As much as we would love to, that's what that means. It means that we can't always invest the level of cash that we were investing in the kinds of programs that the community values. But when we have to pay for basic infrastructure, getting back to the basics of what is our role as municipal government, that's where I see us playing a big role. And we have invested in the things the community has said are important: housing and infrastructure. And to do those important priorities, we have needed to invest in staff. So I will defend our investment in staff, even if we change our admin fees to an extent, right? To me, that's the basic level. But it means that those other things that have been a frustration for the community that we haven't funded, those still are kind of the more discretionary things. I would argue that our spending and investment in staff is not so discretionary, but our spending and investment in some of those other things are more discretionary. But I'm sure we're going to get to have all these great conversations as we go into budget season, right, Gloria?
Yes, we will. Well, thank you for this discussion, though. It did highlight some stuff I want to bring up with them, our advisors, to maybe get them to hone in on certain areas and see if they have any experience with admin fees in regards to their rate study. So just pull in as many experts as we can to try and solve this problem.
That'd be great.
All right, so this will come before you all in a resolution at the June 9th meeting. And we can discuss it with the entire board there too. I can also introduce it. Maybe what I'll do is a little introduction of USDA versus SRF and kind of the nuances that go into that and why it's important to engage in an expert in looking at our long-term financial forecast. So I'll do that next time as well. Are we okay to move on to the audit update? All right. No, okay, Jim. So just wanted to point out that we are in the draft stages of our audit. So all of the information that they needed has been provided, and we should have a final draft here in the next couple of weeks as soon as our accountants review the draft audit. And then we'll have a presentation for you all from the auditor, Jim Hinkle, on July 14th at our regular meeting on that night. So just wanted to put that all on your radar, and that will be the soonest we've completed the audit. So that's pretty exciting for us.
Well, it's done.
Yeah.
We're done. Our part's done.
Our part is done.
Good job, guys. Wait, so you said July 19th? Is that what you said?
July 14th,
July 14th. Okay. Great,
our
thanks.
first meeting in July. That's when Hinkle will be able to present. And if he's not available, I'll get Lorraine again to present, because she did an amazing
She
job.
was great. She was great.
And maybe she can attend that as well to answer any questions, because for you all's knowledge, I have been engaging with her once a month on more of a, not just reviewing actuals, but as more of a financial management piece. So her and I talk through financial issues, and it's been really helpful. So I've really appreciated meeting with her once a month and really learning from her. So yeah.
Great. Thank you guys for all your work to get that done. We've really tightened up that whole process. So hopefully it's getting easier, maybe.
Yeah,
I
they
mean, it
keep
wasn't,
switching auditors on us.
I don't, easier, I don't know if it was necessarily easier. They do keep switching auditors. We had a brand new auditor this year. It was her first, I think her first audit ever. And so towards the end there were some very nitpicky
Redundant questions.
Some redundant questions that were getting a little strange there at the end that our accountants were getting a little frustrated with, but in general, it was fine. We had everything that they needed, so.
Great.
Which should be
Thank
good
you
for the
guys.
audit, because then you'll know that, we've been scrutinized pretty
Yeah,
heavily from a brand new, fresh perspective.
yes, yes. Yeah, it went fine in general. We had everything that they needed, so.
Great.
All right.
All right. Well, thanks, guys. Good information. Thanks for moving all this forward.
Yeah, thank you for your time this morning. Appreciate it.
All
All
right.
right. And it is 10:12 and we can adjourn this meeting.
Thank you.
Everybody,
right.
see you guys later.
Take care.